The morning air on Colony Kepler 442b carried the smell of wet earth and strange flowers. Dong-wook Kim walked slowly through the fields near the colony's edge, checking the growth of their food crops. His boots made soft sounds in the mud from last night's rain. Something was wrong with the corn today. The leaves looked yellow and sick. Dong-wook bent down to touch the soil. It felt too warm. He pulled out his scanner and frowned at the readings. The radiation levels were higher than yesterday. The nuclear reactor leak 3 weeks ago was still causing problems. Commander Taemin had promised it was fixed, but the land kept getting sicker. Dong-wook worried about the colonists. They needed this food to survive the long winter season. A strange sound made him look up. It was like a low growling mixed with something that sounded almost like crying. Dong-wook had never heard anything like it before. He stood up slowly and looked around the field. At the edge of the forest, something moved. Dong-wook's heart started beating faster. He knew what lived in those dark trees. The Catherians were the most dangerous creatures on this planet. They were huge predators with 8 legs and hard, crystal-like skin that could cut through metal. In the past year, they had killed 12 colonists, but this creature was not attacking. It was lying on the ground, barely moving. Dong-wook could see it was huge, probably 3 meters long. Its crystal skin was usually bright blue, but this one looked gray and dull. The creature's 8 legs were spread out on the ground like it could not stand up. Every part of Dong-wook's mind told him to run back to the colony. Call for help. Get Jin-ho and the security team. But something made him stay and watch. The creature lifted its head and looked directly at him. Dong-wook had seen Catherian eyes before in the security videos from attacks. They were usually cold and empty, like a shark's eyes. But these eyes were different. They looked tired and sad, almost human. The creature made that strange crying sound again. Then it did something that shocked Dong-wook completely. It tried to stand up and walk toward him, not in an attacking way, but slowly and carefully, like it was asking for help. Dong-wook took a step back, then stopped. His hand moved to the emergency beacon on his belt, but he did not press it yet. The creature was clearly dying. Its breathing was shallow and quick. Dark liquid dripped from its mouth onto the ground. "Hey there," Dong-wook said quietly, not knowing why he was talking to it. "You don't look so good." The creature stopped moving and tilted its head like it was listening to his voice. Then it did something even stranger. It turned around and started walking slowly toward the forest. After a few steps, it looked back at Dong-wook. It was waiting for him. Dong-wook knew this was the most dangerous thing he had ever thought about doing. Following a Catherian into the forest was basically asking to die, but something about this creature was different. It was not acting like a predator. It was acting like it needed help. Against all his training and common sense, Dong-wook followed. The creature moved very slowly through the trees. Sometimes it had to stop and rest against a tree trunk. Dong-wook stayed about 10 meters behind it, ready to run if it suddenly turned aggressive. But it never did. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached a small clearing. In the center was a cave entrance hidden behind some large rocks. The creature stopped at the entrance and looked back at Dong-wook again. Then it made a different sound, softer and more urgent. From inside the cave, Dong-wook heard something that made his chest tight with emotion. It was the sound of babies crying. Not human babies, but the high, desperate sounds that all young creatures make when they are hungry and scared. The adult Catherian looked at Dong-wook with those sad, intelligent eyes. Then it did something that would stay in Dong-wook's memory forever. It lowered its head and made a sound that was almost like a human saying, "Please." Dong-wook understood. This creature was a mother, and she was dying. She was asking him to help her babies. He followed her into the cave, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it. The cave was warm and dry inside. In a corner made soft with dried grass and leaves, two small creatures were huddled together. They were baby Catherians, but they looked nothing like the terrifying adults. They were about the size of house cats, with soft gray skin instead of hard crystals. Their 8 legs were thin and wobbly. Their eyes were still closed, but they made constant crying sounds. The mother creature lay down next to her babies and looked at Dong-wook. She was breathing very hard now. With great effort, she pushed one of the babies toward him with her head. Then the other one. The meaning was clear. "You want me to take care of them," Dong-wook whispered. The mother made a soft sound that might have been agreement. Her breathing was getting slower. She looked at Dong-wook one more time, and he saw trust in her eyes. Complete trust. Then she closed her eyes and became still. Dong-wook stood in the cave for a long time, looking at the 2 baby Catherians crying beside their dead mother. He knew that taking them back to the colony would cause huge problems. The other colonists would be terrified. Commander Tae-min would probably order the babies to be killed immediately, but he also knew he could not leave them here to die. Their mother had trusted him with the most important thing in her life. She had chosen him, a human, over her own species, to care for her children. Dong-wook took off his jacket and carefully wrapped the 2 babies in it. They stopped crying when they felt the warmth and started making small clicking sounds. He could feel their tiny hearts beating fast against his chest. The walk back to the colony felt like the longest walk of his life. With each step, Dong-wook wondered if he was making a terrible mistake. But every time one of the babies made a soft sound, he remembered the trust in their mother's eyes. Hana Park was waiting for him at the agriculture station when he returned. She was the colony's xenobiologist and had been his mentor since he arrived on Kepler 442b. "Dong-wook, where have you been? Your scanner showed you went into the forest and—" She stopped talking when she saw what he was carrying. "Hana," Dong-wook said quietly, "I need your help, and I think the colony is going to hate me for this." He opened his jacket and showed her the 2 baby Catherians. Hana's eyes went wide with shock and fear. "Dong-wook, what have you done?" 3 months had passed since Dong-wook brought the baby Catherians to the colony. The cubs had grown fast, much faster than anyone expected. Kip and Nala, as Dong-wook had named them, were now the size of large dogs. Their soft gray baby skin was changing into the hard crystal plates that made adult Catherians so dangerous. The colony lived in fear. Every morning, parents kept their children inside until Jin-ho Nam and his security team finished their safety checks. Every night, families locked their doors and windows, even though they knew locks would not stop a Catherian if it wanted to get inside. Commander Tae-min sat in his office, looking at another complaint message on his computer screen. This one was from the Johnson family. They wanted to leave the colony and go back to Earth. In the past month, 15 families had asked to leave. The colony was falling apart. "Sir," Jin-ho's voice came through the communication device. "We need to talk about the cubs again." Tae-min rubbed his tired eyes. "What happened now?" "They got into the food storage building last night, tore open 6 bags of grain. Also, they somehow got into the medical building and knocked over equipment. Worth 3,000 credits. Tae-min stood up and walked to his window. He could see Dong-wook in the distance, playing with the 2 cubs in the fenced area behind the agriculture station. The cubs were jumping and running around him like playful dogs. But Tae-min knew they were not dogs. They were predators. "Jin-ho, bring me your security reports from this week." "Already on your desk, sir." Tae-min picked up the thick folder. Inside were photos and videos from security cameras around the colony. The images showed the cubs doing things that made his blood cold. In one video, Kip moved through the air vent system of the main building. His crystal skin changed color to match the metal walls, making him almost invisible. In another photo, Nala was caught hunting one of the colony's chickens. She had killed it with one quick bite to the neck, just like an adult Cytherian would. The most disturbing photo showed both cubs sitting outside the school building at night. They were just watching the building where human children slept. Jin-ho had written a note on the photo. What are they planning? Dr. Soo-jin Lee knocked on the commander's door and entered without waiting for permission. She was the colony's chief medical officer and she looked angry. Taemin, we need to do something about those creatures before someone gets hurt. What do you want me to do, Soo-jin? Kill 2 baby animals? They are not baby animals anymore. Look at this. She put a data pad on his desk. I have been studying their growth rate. They are developing much faster than normal Cytherians. Their brain scans show intelligence levels that should not exist in creatures their age. Taemin looked at the brain scan images. Even to his untrained eyes, he could see that the cubs' brains were more complex than they should be. They are learning, Taemin. Learning how to hunt, how to hide, how to move through our buildings without being detected. They are studying us. Studying us for what? I think they are planning to attack when they get big enough. That afternoon, Taemin called a colony meeting. All 237 colonists gathered in the main hall. The room was full of worried voices and scared faces. We are here to discuss the situation with the Cytherian cubs, Taemin began. I want to hear everyone's thoughts before we make any decisions. A man named Sung-ho stood up. He was a maintenance worker with 3 young children. Commander, my family has not slept well in months. Every night we hear strange sounds outside our house. Yesterday, my youngest daughter saw one of those things looking through her bedroom window. Other colonists began talking at the same time. Their voices got louder and more angry. They killed Mrs. Chen's cat last week. I saw them eating raw meat behind the storage building. It was disgusting. My scanner detected them in the water treatment plant. What if they poison our water supply? Hana Park stood up and the room became quiet. Everyone respected her as a scientist, even if they did not agree with her. I have been working with Dong-wook to study the cubs' behavior, she said. Yes, they are growing and developing hunting instincts, but they have never shown aggression toward humans. Every incident has been them exploring or playing. Playing? Sung-ho shouted. My daughter was terrified. Children are often scared of things they do not understand, Hana replied calmly. But fear is not the same as danger. Jin-ho stood up next. With respect, Dr. Park, my job is to keep this colony safe. These creatures are unpredictable. Last week, Nala cornered little Ye-jin's daughter behind the supply building. If Dong-wook had not arrived when he did— What actually happened, Jin-ho? Hana interrupted. Tell everyone the whole story. Jin-ho looked uncomfortable. Well, when Dong-wook got there, he found that Nala She was standing between the child and a poison snake. The snake was ready to attack the girl. The room became very quiet. So Nala was protecting the child? Someone asked. It looked that way, Jin-ho admitted, but we cannot be sure. Maybe she was just hunting the snake and the girl happened to be there. Dr. Soo-jin shook her head. That is exactly my point. We do not know what they are thinking or planning. These creatures have the intelligence of adult humans but the instincts of apex predators. That combination is extremely dangerous. Dong-wook finally stood up. He had been quiet during the whole meeting, but now everyone turned to look at him. I understand your fears, he said. I really do, but I have spent every day with Kip and Nala for 3 months. I have watched them learn and grow. Yes, they are predators, but they are also individuals with personalities and emotions. Emotions, Dr. Soo-jin laughed. They are animals, Dong-wook. No, they are not just animals. Kip likes to collect shiny objects and arrange them in patterns. Nala brings me flowers sometimes, always the same type of blue flower from near the forest. Yesterday, when I was feeling sad about my father's death anniversary, both cubs stayed close to me all day. They knew I was hurting, the colonists murmured among themselves. Some looked thoughtful, others still looked scared. Commander Tai Min, raised his hand for silence. The question we must answer is simple. Are Kip and Nala a threat to this colony? Yes, said Dr. Sujin. No, said Hana. I do not know, said Jin-ho. But my job is to prepare for the worst possibility. Tae-min nodded. Then we need more information. Jin-ho, I want complete surveillance on the cubs for the next 2 weeks. Hana and Dong-wook. I want daily reports on their behavior and development. After 2 weeks, we will vote on what to do. As the colonists left the meeting, Dong-wook felt the weight of 200 pairs of eyes watching him. He knew that most of these people wanted Kip and Nala gone. Some probably wanted them dead. That night, Dong-wook sat with the cubs in their sleeping area. They were curled up next to him, making soft, purring sounds. Kip's crystal skin reflected the light from the lamp, creating pretty patterns on the walls. Nala was holding one of her blue flowers in her front legs. I do not know how to protect you, Dong-wook whispered to them. Everyone is so afraid. Nala opened her large eyes and looked at him. She made a soft clicking sound that always seemed to mean she understood. Then she gently placed her blue flower in his hand. Dong-wook smiled sadly. I promise I will try to keep you safe. Your mother trusted me, and I will not let her down. Outside, Jin-ho's security cameras watched and recorded everything, building a case that would soon determine the cubs' fate. The 2 weeks of observation had passed, and things were getting worse for the colony. The food supplies were running low because the crops were failing. The radiation from the reactor leak had made most of the soil too dangerous for growing food. People were starting to get sick from eating contaminated vegetables. Dr. Sujin stood in the medical building, looking at test results that made her worry. 5 more colonists had come in with stomach problems this week. The water filters were working, but the food was still carrying too much radiation. We need to find clean soil somewhere else, she told Commander Tae-min over the communication device. Or we need to fix the contamination problem soon. People are getting sicker. Tae-min rubbed his forehead. The colony was facing too many problems at once. Food shortage, sick people, and half the colonists still wanted the Catherian cubs removed. The vote about Kip and Nala was scheduled for tomorrow. Meanwhile, Dong-wook was working in the agriculture station when something strange happened. He was checking the soil samples from different areas around the colony, looking for any clean ground where they could grow food. All the samples showed the same problem: too much radiation. Kip came into the building carrying something in his mouth. The cub had grown bigger again and was now almost the size of a small horse. His crystal skin had become more beautiful, changing colors from blue to green depending on the light. What do you have there, Kip? Dong-wook asked. Kip dropped a small rock on the table next to the soil samples. It was unlike any rock Dong-wook had seen before. It was smooth and dark, almost like glass, but it felt warm to touch. Dong-wook put the rock next to his radiation scanner. The machine started making excited beeping sounds. The rock was not radioactive. In fact, it seemed to be absorbing radiation from the air around it. Where did you find this? Dong-wook asked, but Kip had already left the building. 10 minutes later, Kip came back with another rock, then another. Soon there was a small pile of the strange rocks on the table. Dong-wook tested each one. They all had the same amazing property. They absorbed radiation. Nala appeared at the door, also carrying something, but she had plants in her mouth, not rocks. She dropped them carefully on the table and looked at Dong-wook with her large, intelligent eyes. The plants were ones that Dong-wook had never seen before. They had thick, waxy leaves and strong roots. When he tested them with his scanner, he discovered they were completely free of radiation. More than that, they seemed to be edible. How did you know? Dong-wook whispered to the cubs. Over the next few days, Kip and Nala continued bringing things to Dong-wook. More radiation-absorbing rocks, more clean plants, and even small animals that were safe to eat. Each gift solved a specific problem the colony was facing. Hana was amazed when Dong-wook showed her what was happening. "They understand our needs," she said, studying the cubs' behavior. "This is not random collecting. They are actively trying to help us." The breakthrough came when Hana got sick with a local infection that Dr. Soo-jin could not cure. The infection caused high fever and severe pain. The colony's medicines were not working against it. Dong-wook was sitting with Hana in the medical building when Nala entered. The cub looked at Hana, then at Dong-wook. She made a soft clicking sound and left the building. An hour later, Nala returned with a thick root in her mouth. She placed it gently on Hana's bed and nudged it toward her with her nose. "What is she doing?" Hana asked weakly. Dr. Soo-jin took the root and examined it. "I have never seen this plant before. Let me run some tests." The tests showed that the root contained powerful natural antibiotics. When processed correctly, it could fight infections that human medicine could not cure. Dr. Soo-jin prepared a treatment from the root, and within 2 days, Hana was completely healthy. "They are not just intelligent," Hana told Commander Tai-min. "They are problem solvers. They see what we need and find solutions." But the most amazing discovery was still to come. Dong-wook was working late in the agriculture station when Kip came in and started scratching marks in the dirt floor. At first, Dong-wook thought the cub was just playing, but then he looked more carefully at the marks. They formed a rough map of the area around the colony. Kip used his claw to mark specific locations on the map. Then he brought some of his radiation-absorbing rocks and placed them on those spots. "You are showing me where to find more rocks," Dong-wook realized. Kip made an approving clicking sound and added more marks to his map. These new marks showed the locations of underground water sources, areas with clean soil, and places where the safe plants grew wild. Dong-wook called Hana and Commander Tai-min to see the map. They stared at it in amazement. "This changes everything," Tai-min said quietly. "These cubs are not just animals. They are partners." Hana knelt down next to the map and studied it carefully. "Look at this level of detail. They understand geography, resource distribution, and our specific needs. This kind of intelligence is unprecedented." The next day, Dong-wook and Jin-ho used Kip's map to explore the locations the cub had marked. They found everything exactly where the map indicated. Caves full of radiation-absorbing rocks, underground streams with clean water, and fields of the nutritious plants. "How do they know all this?" Jin-ho asked as they filled containers with clean water. "I think they have been exploring the area for weeks," Dong-wook replied. "While we thought they were just wandering around, they were actually studying our environment and learning how to help us survive." When they returned to the colony, news of the discoveries spread quickly. The colonists who had been demanding the cubs' removal suddenly saw them in a new light. Sung-ho, the maintenance worker who had been most afraid of the cubs, approached Dong-wook that evening. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I was wrong about them." "You were not wrong to be careful," Dong-wook replied. "But maybe we were all wrong about what they really are." The colony meeting that night was very different from the one 2 weeks before. Instead of fear and anger, there was curiosity and hope. "The question we asked was whether the cubs are a threat," Commander Tai-min addressed the crowd. "But maybe we were asking the wrong question. Maybe we should have asked, what are they trying to do?" Dr. Soo-jin stood up. She had been the strongest voice against keeping the cubs, but now she looked thoughtful. "The evidence suggests they are actively working to help our colony survive. The medicine Nala brought me saved my life. The resources they have shown us could save all our lives." "But why?" asked Sung-ho. "Why do they want to help us?" Dong-wook looked out the window at Kip and Nala, who were playing in their enclosure. "I think it is because they chose us as their family. Their mother trusted me with them, and now they trust us with their future." Hana nodded. "They are learning from us, but they are also teaching us. They show us things about this world that we never would have discovered on our own. The vote was unanimous. The cubs would stay. But more than that, they would become official members of the colony community. As the meeting ended, Dong-wook felt a mixture of relief and excitement. The cubs had proven themselves, but he sensed this was only the beginning. Kip and Nala were still growing and learning. What would they become as adults? What other amazing things might they do? That night, as he watched the cubs sleeping peacefully in their shelter, Dong-wook remembered their mother's trusting eyes. She had known something that none of the humans understood at the time. She had seen the potential for her children to become something completely new, something that had never existed before in the galaxy. Cytherians who chose cooperation over conquest, who used their incredible abilities to build rather than destroy. The transformation was just beginning. The storm came without warning on a dark winter night. The weather systems on Kepler 442b were unpredictable, and this storm was the worst the colony had seen in 3 years. Wind speeds reached over 100 kilometers per hour, and the rain fell so hard that the security cameras could not see more than a few meters. Jin-ho sat in the security station, watching the blank screens and listening to the howling wind. The storm had knocked out half of their defensive systems. The electric fences were down, the motion sensors were not working, and the external lights had all failed. "Commander," he spoke into his radio, "we are basically blind out there. If anything attacks during this storm, we would not know until it was too late." Tae-min's voice crackled back through the static. "How long until the backup systems are online? At least 6 hours, maybe more. The main power grid is overloaded." In the agriculture station, Dong-wook was trying to calm Kip and Nala. The cubs had grown even larger over the past few months and were now almost as big as adult Cytherians. But tonight they were acting strange. They kept pacing around their shelter, making low growling sounds and looking toward the forest. "What is wrong with you two?" Dong-wook asked. "It is just a storm." But Kip and Nala were not worried about the storm. Their enhanced senses could detect something else in the darkness. Something dangerous was coming. At the edge of the forest, 6 pairs of glowing eyes watched the colony. 6 adult Cytherians had been hunting together for days, waiting for the right moment to attack the human settlement. The storm provided perfect cover. These wild Cytherians were nothing like Kip and Nala. They were pure predators, driven only by hunger and territorial instincts. The colony represented an invasion of their hunting grounds, and they had come to eliminate the threat. The attack began at midnight. The first sign was the screaming of the livestock animals in the outer buildings. Then the emergency alarm started blaring throughout the colony. Jin-ho grabbed his weapon and ran outside into the storm. Through the rain and wind, he could see dark shapes moving between the buildings. They were huge, fast, and completely silent despite their size. "All security teams to positions," he shouted into his radio. "We have multiple hostile Cytherians inside the perimeter. The colonists had trained for this situation, but training in calm weather was very different from fighting for their lives in a storm." Families barricaded themselves in their homes while the security teams tried to track enemies they could barely see. One of the wild Cytherians smashed through the wall of the school building where several families had taken shelter. Parents screamed, and children cried as the creature advanced toward them, its crystal claws sparking against the metal floor. Dr. Soo-jin was in the medical building with her 2 young children when another Cytherian broke through the roof. She pushed her children behind a cabinet and tried to find something to defend them with, but she knew it was hopeless. Meanwhile, in the agriculture station, Kip and Nala were becoming more agitated. They scratched at the door of their shelter and made urgent clicking sounds at Dong-wook. "I cannot let you out," Dong-wook told them. "It is too dangerous." But Kip did something he had never done before. He used his crystal claws to cut through the metal lock on their shelter door. The lock fell to the floor in pieces. Nala pushed the door open and both cubs ran outside into the storm. Dong-wook followed them, shouting for them to come back. The cubs ran straight toward the sounds of fighting. When they reached the main colony area, they stopped and saw the attacking Cytherians for the first time. The wild adults were larger and more heavily armored than Kip and Nala. Their crystal skin was darker and covered with scars from years of fighting. When they saw the cubs, they stopped attacking the humans and turned their attention to the young Cytherians. The adult Cytherians began making complex sounds that Dong Wook had never heard before. It was clearly some kind of communication, but not like the simple clicks and growls that Kip and Nala usually made. This was a sophisticated language. Kip and Nala responded with their own sounds. For several minutes, the cubs and the wild adults seemed to be having a conversation while the humans watched in terrified silence. Dong Wook realized he was witnessing something incredible. The wild Cytherians were trying to recruit Kip and Nala to join their attack. They were offering the cubs a chance to return to their natural way of life as apex predators. For a moment, it looked like it might work. Kip took a step toward the wild adults, and Nala followed him. Their body language changed, becoming more aggressive and predatory. The human part of their nature seemed to be fading away. "No," Dong Wook whispered. "Please do not leave us." One of the adult Cytherians, the largest and most scarred, made an aggressive sound at the humans. It was clearly ordering Kip and Nala to join the attack and kill the colonists who had raised them. This was the moment that would determine everything. Would the cubs choose their natural instincts and their own species? Or would they choose the humans who had become their family? Kip looked back at Dong Wook, then at the wild Cytherian leader. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Nala made a decision that changed everything. She stepped between the wild Cytherians and the humans. She spread her 8 legs wide and lowered her head in a defensive posture. She was protecting the colonists. Kip immediately joined her, taking the same protective stance. The message was clear. If the wild Cytherians wanted to hurt the humans, they would have to go through Kip and Nala first. The wild adults were shocked. In their species' entire history, young Cytherians had never chosen to protect other species. It went against every instinct they had evolved over millions of years. The leader made angry sounds at Kip and Nala, but the cubs did not move. They had made their choice. What followed was the most brutal fight in the colony's history. The wild Cytherians attacked with the fury of creatures that saw their own offspring as traitors. But Kip and Nala fought back with skills that no wild Cytherian possessed. They had learned human tactics from watching Jin Ho train his security teams. They used coordinated attacks, strategic positioning, and even improvised weapons. Kip grabbed a broken piece of metal fence and used it like a spear. Nala used the colony's own defensive barriers to trap one of the wild adults. Jin Ho and his security teams joined the fight, but they quickly realized they were not the primary fighters anymore. Kip and Nala were leading the defense of the colony, and the humans were supporting them. The battle lasted for 2 hours. When it was over, 3 of the wild Cytherians were dead, and the other 3 had fled back into the forest. Nala was badly injured with deep cuts across her crystal skin. Kip had lost one of his claws, but he was still standing. Dr. Su-jin ran to help treat Nala's wounds, even though just hours before she had been terrified of the cubs. "You saved my children," she said to Nala as she worked to stop the bleeding. "You saved all of us." As the storm finally began to clear, the colonists gathered around Kip and Nala. These creatures who had once been feared were now heroes. They had faced the ultimate test of loyalty and chosen their adopted human family over their own species. Commander Tae Min stood in the wreckage of the colony's outer defenses and tried to understand what he had witnessed. "They did not just fight alongside us," he said to Hana. "They led the defense. They made tactical decisions. They coordinated our response." "They have evolved beyond their species," Hana replied, gently examining Kip's injured claw. They are not wild Kitherians anymore. They are something completely new. Dongwook knelt next to Nala as Dr. Su Jin finished treating her wounds. The cub's breathing was shallow, but her eyes were alert and focused on him. "Thank you," he whispered, to her. "Your mother would be proud of what you have become." Nala made a soft, clicking sound that seemed to say she understood. Then she closed her eyes to rest, exhausted but victorious. The test was over. Kip and Nala had proven beyond any doubt that they were not threats to the colony. They were its protectors. They had chosen love over instinct, family over species, and cooperation over conquest. But this was just the beginning of their transformation. The colony had seen what the cubs could become when they chose to use their incredible abilities to help rather than harm. The question now was, what else might they achieve as they continued to grow and learn? The storm had passed, but the real change was just starting. 6 months had passed since the night of the great storm. Kip and Nala were now fully grown, as large as any adult Kitherian, but completely different in every other way. Their crystal skin had developed beautiful patterns that changed color with their emotions. When they were happy, they glowed with soft blue and green lights. When they were thinking hard about a problem, their skin showed swirling patterns of gold and silver. Dr. Hana Park sat in her laboratory, staring at brain scan images that should not exist. The neural pathways in Kip and Nala's minds were unlike anything seen in wild Kitherians. They had developed new areas of brain tissue that controlled empathy, creative thinking, and complex problem-solving. "This is impossible," she murmured to herself. "Evolution does not work this fast." But the evidence was right in front of her. The cubs had not just learned human behaviors. They had physically changed their own brain structure through conscious choice and effort. They were becoming a new kind of creature that had never existed before. Commander Tae-min knocked on the laboratory door and entered with a worried expression. "Hana, we have a situation. The Galactic Council has sent a delegation to investigate our colony. They received reports about our weaponized Kitherians, and they are coming to see for themselves." Hana looked up from her research. "When will they arrive?" 3 days. "And Hana, they are not coming as friends. They think we have created some kind of biological weapon. If they decide that Kip and Nala are dangerous, they have authority to destroy the entire colony to prevent the threat from spreading." Meanwhile, in the colony's workshop, Kip was doing something that amazed everyone who saw it. He was writing. Not just making marks in the dirt like before, but actually writing human words with a modified stylus held carefully in his crystal claws. Dongwook watched in wonder as Kip wrote a message on the electronic tablet. "Water system. Needs repair. Leak in Section 7. "How did you know about the leak?" Dongwook asked. Kip wrote another message. "Heard different sound in pipes. Can fix if you show me tools." This was the breakthrough that changed everything. Kip was not just intelligent. He was actively learning human skills and wanting to contribute to the colony's maintenance and improvement. Nala had developed different talents. She had become fascinated with art and beauty. She created crystal sculptures by carefully arranging her shed skin plates in complex geometric patterns. The sculptures were so beautiful that colonists began requesting them as decorations for their homes. But Nala's greatest gift was her emotional intelligence. She seemed to understand human feelings better than many humans did. When old Sung-ho was grieving the death of his wife, Nala spent entire days sitting quietly beside him, offering comfort without words. When children were scared during storms, she would glow softly with calming colors until they fell asleep. The most remarkable change was in how the cubs had modified their own hunting instincts. Dr. Su Jin observed them hunting the local wildlife and was amazed by what she saw. Instead of killing their prey, they had learned to hunt non-lethally. They would chase and capture animals just like wild Kitherians, but then they would carefully examine them before letting them go unharmed. They seem to be studying the local ecosystem, learning about each species without disrupting the natural balance. They have developed a moral sense, Dr. Sujin reported to the Colony Council. They choose not to kill unless absolutely necessary. They understand the difference between hunting for survival and hunting for sport. But the most incredible discovery came when other alien species began approaching the colony. For years, the human settlement had been avoided by the peaceful herbivorous aliens that lived in the northern mountains. These creatures, called the Gentle Ones by the colonists, had always been too afraid of human technology and weapons to make contact. Everything changed when Kip and Nala began visiting the mountain areas on their exploration missions. The Gentle Ones were naturally afraid of Kitherians, but something about these two was different. They did not radiate the predatory aggression that made wild Kitherians so terrifying. Instead, Kip and Nala approached the Gentle Ones with curiosity and respect. They learned to mimic the aliens' peaceful communication methods, creating the first successful interspecies diplomatic contact in the colony's history. The Gentle Ones brought gifts of rare minerals and knowledge about safe travel routes through dangerous areas. In return, Kip and Nala shared human agricultural techniques that helped the mountain dwellers grow better food in their harsh environment. They are natural diplomats, Hana reported with excitement. They understand instinctively how to bridge the gap between different species. They translate not just language, but entire ways of thinking. When news of this diplomatic success reached other human colonies in the sector, requests for information began flooding in. Every settlement wanted to know how to domesticate Kitherians for peaceful purposes. But Hana's research made it clear that this was not domestication in any traditional sense. Kip and Nala had not been trained or conditioned to behave differently. They had chosen to evolve, using their superior intelligence to consciously override their genetic programming. "You cannot recreate this process," she explained in her reports to other colonies. "These individuals chose to change themselves. You cannot force that choice on other Kitherians." The proof came when several other colonies attempted to capture Kitherian cubs and raise them in controlled environments. All of these attempts failed. The cubs either escaped and returned to the wild, or they died from the stress of captivity. Kip and Nala were unique because they had been entrusted to human care by their dying mother, creating an emotional bond that made their transformation possible. Without that foundation of trust, the process could not be replicated. As the day of the Galactic Council's arrival approached, tension in the colony grew. Everyone knew that the future of their home depended on how the delegation judged Kip and Nala. The night before the inspection, Dong-wook found both cubs in their favorite spot overlooking the colony. They were sitting side by side, their crystal skin glowing softly in the darkness as they watched the lights in the human buildings below. "Tomorrow will be difficult," Dong-wook told them. "There will be people who do not understand what you have become. They will be afraid of you." Kip turned his large head toward Dong-wook and made a complex series of clicks and chirps. Over the months, Dong-wook had learned to understand much of their language. "You are not afraid?" he asked. Nala responded with her own sounds, and Dong-wook smiled. "You are right. You have already faced much scarier things than bureaucrats." The cubs had been thinking about the inspection, too, and they had prepared something special for their visitors. They had been working together on a project that they kept secret from all the humans. As the three of them sat under the alien stars, Dong-wook reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. From two helpless babies crying in a cave to sophisticated beings capable of interspecies diplomacy and conscious evolution. "Your mother chose well," he told them. "She knew you could become something amazing." The cubs glowed brighter, their colors shifting to warm golds and oranges that seemed to express contentment and love. They had found their place in the universe, not as predators or prey, but as bridges between different forms of life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight They were simply a family sitting together under the stars, ready to face whatever came next. The transformation was nearly complete, but the most important test was still ahead of them. Would the galaxy accept what they had become? Or would fear and misunderstanding destroy the miracle that trust and love had created? The answer would come with the dawn. 2 years had passed since the Galactic Council's inspection. The 3-day visit that everyone had feared turned into a month-long study that changed everything. The delegation had arrived expecting to find dangerous weapons, but instead, they discovered the first example of conscious interspecies evolution in recorded galactic history. Dr. Hannah Park, now recognized as the leading expert on Catherian development, stood before the newly built Interspecies Communications Center. The building had been designed by Kip and Nala, working together with human architects. It was both beautiful and functional, with flowing crystal walls that complemented traditional human design. Inside the center, something amazing was happening every day. Young Catherians from across the planet were coming to learn from Kip and Nala. Not all of them made the same transformation, but many began showing the first signs of conscious evolution. The breakthrough had come when Kip and Nala revealed their secret project to the Galactic Council inspection team. They had been developing a new form of technology that combined Catherian biological abilities with human engineering principles. The biotech systems they created were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, living crystal networks that could grow and adapt to solve complex problems, environmental processors that could clean contaminated soil by working with natural biological processes, communication devices that could translate not just between languages, but between completely different ways of thinking. Commander Taman, now promoted to regional director, watched the morning training session through his office window. Kip was teaching a group of young colonist children how to communicate with Catherian cubs using a combination of sounds, colors, and body language. The children laughed and played while learning skills that would help them become ambassadors to an entirely new kind of civilization. Nala had become the colony's chief diplomat with other alien species. Her emotional intelligence and natural empathy made her perfect for the role. Under her guidance, the colony had established peaceful relationships with 7 different alien species in the region. The most remarkable success was the Great Alliance, a cooperative agreement between humans, gentle ones, and the evolved Catherians. Together, they had created a new model for planetary development that respected all species while allowing each to contribute their unique abilities. But the real miracle was happening in the colony's newest building, the nursery school where human children and Catherian cubs learned together from their earliest days. These children, raised alongside young Catherians, were developing unprecedented abilities to understand and communicate across species barriers. Dong Wook, now the colony's director of interspecies development, watched 5-year-old Minsu playing with a young Catherian cub named Brightstone. The human child and alien cub communicated effortlessly, switching between human words, Catherian sounds, and pure empathic understanding. "They are the future," Dr. Su Jin observed, joining Dong Wook at the nursery window. "These children will grow up thinking that cooperation between species is normal. They will build a galaxy very different from the one we grew up in." The transformation had not been without challenges. Some human colonies still refused to work with evolved Catherians, fearing that the changes would somehow threaten human dominance in the galaxy. Some wild Catherian packs saw the evolved ones as traitors and continued to attack human settlements. But progress was undeniable. 12 colonies now hosted evolved Catherian families. Trade agreements between human and alien worlds had increased by 300%. Most importantly, the rate of interspecies conflicts had dropped to the lowest level in galactic history. The afternoon brought Dong Wook's favorite part of each day, his walk with Kip and Nala through the colony's expanded territories. The settlement, now covered an area 10 times larger than the original colony, but it felt more like a garden than an industrial complex. The biotech systems designed by the evolved Catherians had eliminated the need for harmful industrial processes. Buildings grew from living crystal that filtered air and water while providing shelter. Food grew in harmonious agricultural systems that actually improved the local ecosystem instead of damaging it. Do you ever regret the choice your mother made? Dong-wook asked Kip as they walked past a group of young Catherians practicing artistic crystal formation with human teachers. Kip's response came not in sounds, but in colors. His crystal skin showed flowing patterns of deep blue contentment, mixed with bright gold joy. The meaning was clear. He had found his purpose in life. Nala added her own color response, silver patterns that meant gratitude mixed with excitement about future possibilities. She was already working on plans for establishing similar colonies on other worlds. That evening, the colony held its weekly community celebration. Humans, evolved Catherians, gentle ones, and several other alien species gathered in the central plaza to share food, music, and stories. Young Min-soo stood up with his cub friend Brightstone to perform a song they had created together. It combined human melody with Catherian harmonic resonance and gentle one rhythm patterns. The result was music unlike anything that had existed before, beautiful in ways that no single species could have achieved alone. As Dong-wook listened to the interspecies symphony, he thought about the dying Catherian mother who had started it all. Veltar had made a choice based on trust and hope, rather than fear and instinct. Her decision had created ripples that were still spreading across the galaxy. Dr. Hana approached him with a datapad showing the latest reports from other colonies. The Conscious Evolution Protocol is being adopted by 6 more worlds this month, she said. And we just received a request from the Andromedan Collective. They want to establish an exchange program with our Interspecies Development Center. Veltar's children are going to the stars, Dong-wook said softly. The celebration continued late into the night, but Dong-wook eventually found himself alone with Kip and Nala in the quiet garden behind the communication center. The 2 evolved Catherians were now massive and magnificent, their crystal skin reflecting the light of Kepler 442b's 3 moons in patterns of incredible beauty. What do you think about when you look at the stars? Dong-wook asked them. Their response came as a combination of sounds and colors that he had learned to interpret over the years. They were thinking about other worlds, other species, other opportunities to build bridges of understanding. They dreamed of a galaxy where cooperation replaced competition, where diversity was celebrated as strength rather than feared as difference. Year later, the first interspecies exploration ship left Kepler 442b. The crew included humans, evolved Catherians, gentle ones, and representatives of 4 other alien species. Their mission was to seek out new worlds and new civilizations, not to conquer or exploit them, but to learn from them and invite them to join the growing alliance of conscious evolution. Kip and Nala chose to stay on Kepler 442b, but their children and students went to the stars as ambassadors of a new way of thinking. Each new world they visited added new perspectives and abilities to the collective knowledge of species working together. The transformation that had begun with one dying, Mother's trust in a human stranger had become a revolution that changed the entire galaxy. Predator and prey, conqueror and conquered, us and them. These old categories no longer applied to a universe where conscious choice could overcome millions of years of evolutionary programming. As Dong-wook grew older, he often visited the small memorial garden where Veltar's remains had been laid to rest with full honors. The plaque there read simply, "She chose trust over fear and changed the galaxy forever." Children of many species played in that garden now, learning together, growing together, evolving together into something greater than any single species could become alone. They were living proof that love and trust were more powerful forces than fear and instinct. The colony that had once lived in terror of Cytherian attacks had become the center of a new galactic civilization based on cooperation and mutual respect. The predators had become protectors, the enemies had become family, and the impossible had become inevitable. The transformation was complete, but in another sense, it was just beginning. Each new generation of interspecies children pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Each new world that joined the alliance added new possibilities for growth and discovery. The dying wish of one Cytherian mother had planted a seed that grew into something beyond anyone's imagination. What started as an act of desperate trust between two different species had become the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. On quiet evenings, when the three moons of Kepler 442b cast their silver light across the thriving colony, Dongwook would sit with Kip and Nala and remember that first day when everything changed. A dying predator had looked into the eyes of a human stranger and seen not an enemy, but hope. That choice had saved more than just two orphaned cubs. It had saved the galaxy from a future of endless conflict between species. It had shown that evolution was not just about survival of the fittest, but about the wisdom to choose cooperation over competition. The colony's children, both human and alien, would grow up in a universe where such cooperation was normal. They would carry the message of conscious evolution to distant stars, creating new alliances and new possibilities wherever they went. As the celebration continued in the plaza below, with voices of many species joining together in harmony, Dongwook smiled and whispered a promise to the stars. "We will never forget what you taught us, Veltar. Trust creates miracles." The transformation that had shocked the colony was now transforming the galaxy itself. And it was only the beginning of an even greater story that would unfold among the infinite stars, where love had proven stronger. Then fear and hope had conquered the darkness between worlds. The future belonged to those who chose to trust, to grow, and to evolve together. The future belonged to the children of two worlds, united by one mother's dying wish and one human's willingness to honor that sacred trust. The new dawn had arrived, and it shone with the light of infinite possibilities.